The Carolina Panthers have an intriguing position that they sit in with just under 3 weeks remaining until that fateful Thursday night in Pittsburgh. Dave Canellis gave the press and all of Panther Nation quite a bit of a idea of what the Panthers are not going to do in the draft. Yet there are still so many sports writers out there, including individuals like me, whom question, will Dave Canellis pull another Tetairoa McMillan? Or will he go with what the experts think? Well, some of them. I'll have that story and a couple of other ideas and things to go along on this post-Easter edition, on this post-Resurrection Sunday edition of Growlin' and Prowlin'. Welcome back, Panther Nation. Thank you once again for joining us here on this post-resurrection edition of Growlin' and Prowlin'. Again, you are joined by the one and only Mr. CeeLo. And guys, it has been a busy 2 weeks for myself personally, as well as the Carolina Panthers. So I haven't been with you, but I hope you all are doing great. I hope you enjoyed your post-resurrection Sunday, as I know I did. Enjoyed it with my family. But I have to give a huge growl out to my grandmother as she celebrates her 91st birthday. Awesome, Grandmama. Love you. And my beautiful, loving wife's birthday is coming up at the end of the week. Want to wish her a happy birthday. Give her a huge growl out as well. Love you, baby. Also, for a lot of you here in the state of Georgia, and I don't know where else you guys may be, it's spring break time. That's right. And whether you're in college, high school, middle school, elementary school, or maybe pre-K, it's time for a little break before the home stretch. And that's where we are with the NFL draft for the Carolina Panthers. And guys, I have heard some very disturbing things. I have heard some very encouraging things. And guys, I'm going to try to be with you up until that time when we make that decision, whether it's at 19, whether we choose to move up, whether we choose to move down. And I am going to do 2 shows as to why we should trade down or trade up. But I want to introduce you to a couple of these players that we've been mocked at and why I hope they're gone when we get to our place to select. Because realistically, I think many content creators and many of you fans out there have taken your eye off the ball. I'm going to start initially with what we should do. Okay? Now, many of you are going to say there are not a lot of defensive tackles in this draft that could pair with Derrick Brown and be the type of force that A'Shawn Robinson was. Now, guys, let us look into it. As much as Cam Jackson looks like an immovable force in there, he's got very limited playing time. Now, I know many of you are going to say, well, how is he going to get playing time if he doesn't get his opportunity? I agree with that. But do we really want to risk And I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of you still don't realize just how this run defense was still middle of the pack. And this is with Derrick Brown and A'Shawn Robinson. Now with A'Shawn Robinson, being a cap casualty and taking his talents to not necessarily South Beach, but Tampa, this poses a problem. Because now he's teamed with Vita Vea. A'Shawn's not asked to be the alpha defensive tackle in that system. He's going to flourish yet again. And Panther Nation, we had trouble running the ball against the Buccaneers as is. Now we got to contend with a pissed off, wanting to prove himself type of guy. And not to mention Christian Rozeboom. So, in a sense, you've got two guys on our biggest divisional rival, basically with a chip on their shoulder. Now, a lot of you are going to say, oh, Rozeboom ain't this and he ain't that. Look, when you got a guy like Vita Vea keeping blockers off of you and you're able to roam free. Now, I'm not real positive what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to ask Christian Rozeboom to do. I'm not all that, sure as to what his role is going to be. Hell, he could be a backup. I don't think they brought him there for that. Being that the Buccaneers are in a really tough spot right now and looking as though that they could be in the remnants of a rebuild, being that Mike Evans, they were not able to sign a historically really good football player and arguably one of the franchise's best, arguably to cleat them up. But, guys, we have to remember something. When we lose something, we have to replace it. And as I said, I'm a big fan of Cam Jackson. The only issue I have with is we're putting a lot of emphasis on him. Bobby Brown III was okay. And Turk Wharton, I'm still not sold on him, guys. Look, I've said this graphic. Go back and watch the show about how important A'Shawn Robinson was. Look, realistically, when you sit down and you really start analyzing how important A'Shawn Robinson was, it may not jump out at you. To me, it was obvious. And I've said it before. His numbers, other than the sacks, were right there with Derrick Brown. They were right there. Tackles-wise, sacks-wise, tackles for losses. I think Derrick Brown had 5.5, and A'Shawn had 2.5. Guys, look, for a defensive tackle, look, we all know Derrick Brown is elite. This is not up for debate, but to minimize what he meant to this football team is nothing short than us cutting ourselves off at the ankles. This guy was nothing short of a really effective player. I don't even want to say solid. Solid is just, it's not enough considering this was a guy that did everything the year Derrick Brown was gone. And to see Derrick Brown come back and this team go from an historically bad run defense to middle of the pack, guys, that's a massive improvement. That is a massive improvement. Especially considering we only got better considering Princely Aman-Mielon and Nick Scorton. And then you include some of the plays Lathan Ransom made. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, well, is there a tackle in the first round that is worthy of that that 19th pick? Well, you could argue that there isn't. I mean, I've seen so many different mock drafts that have sent guys such as Katie McDonald, Christian Miller, Lee Hunter. The one guy that really intrigues me, and I know a lot of you are just going to nod your heads because he more likely may not be able to make the first couple of games because of an injury he suffered at the Combine. Caleb Banks. The 6'6", 330-pound DT out of Florida reminds me a lot of Cam Jackson. The only difference is he's got way more flash plays to show for what he has. And a lot of you are going to say, well, when are we going to see the defensive tackle that can make a difference in the passing game? Look, realistically, in this scheme that Coach Evero has, you've got one guy that can do that outside of Derek Brown, and that's Turk Wharton. And Turk Wharton has been a huge liability against the run. Now, he did get better when he got healthy at the end of last season. But for the most part, A'Shawn Robinson was the better guy, along with Bobby Brown. When he was not in the lineup, you can do the math on this. The Panthers were minus 50 stopping the run, which basically means the Panthers gave up 50 fewer yards less when Turk Wharton did not play in a game. So make of it what you will. We have to make a priority at getting a defensive tackle in here. Now, a lot of you are going to say, give Cam Jackson a chance. See if Turk Wharton can make better in his second season, and hopefully it's injury riddled. And same deal with Bobby Brown III. Look, I don't want to go backwards, guys. And I think when you get caught up in individuals who don't watch this team every week, who don't know the ins and outs of what this team has went through, all they know is the big time headline talks. And even the people around the team, the Charlotte Observer individuals, they're thinking wide receiver. What does it help to go back to being a historically bad run defense, but you're putting up 30 points a game? And you have people saying, well, they averaged 18 a game last year, one of the worst offenses. Well, let's explore that. What? Robert Hunt didn't play most of the season. And then we had ins and outs of Taylor Moton. Ike Ekwonu missed a couple of games. The only consistent guy that we had at that position, of course, was on that offensive line was Damian Lewis. Heck, Austin Corbett was the initial starter at center, and he ended up getting injured, and it was a Cade Mays deal. And Cade Mays had a couple of games he missed. So, not only do we have to shore up defensive tackle, but we also got to think about offensive line. But I'm not going to go stray too far from defensive tackle. Because, guys, we have to look at last year's team and realize, yes, Rico Dowdle was a dude. He was a very good steal. And unfortunately, with the possible return of Jonathan Brooks, hopefully successful, it made him expendable. Now, we did go out and get A.J. Dillon, but realistically, guys, we have to, if we don't do anything else, we have to stand fast in certain areas, especially when we lose guys. The most important thing we can do is make sure we don't regress in certain areas. Look, y'all can sit here and be mad at Coach Evero if you want to. But if we don't put another guy in there that has got A'Shawn Robinson ability. Now, I'm not saying we take a rookie and he's just going to come out there and blow it up. Not everybody's going to be a Mason Graham. Heck, if you go back and watch the tape, Derek Brown did become Derek Brown year one. He had his moments. But this is where you want this guy to mature. You put him in a situation where he's next to a Derek Brown, a Bobby Brown, or a Cam Jackson. Let him work out the kinks and be able to at least be able to get that heavy rotation in there. Now, here's the huge Dave Cannella spin on that 19th pick. Whether it's tight end Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon, whether it's Mekhi Lemon out of USC, the wide receiver, whether it's Christian Miller out of Georgia, or Kaden McDaniel, the tackle out of Ohio State, we have to realize this guy's going to have to play. I mean, whether it's Akeem Mesidor, Caden Proctor, Spencer Fano, Peter Woods, defensive tackle out of Clemson, or even Avion Terrell, cornerback out of Clemson. Now, let me tell you why this fits in. Not only does a guy like Caleb Banks, or even you got the tackles, Caden McDaniel and Christian Miller. This is why this makes sense. We have been looking for a slot corner consistently since we drafted Shaw Smith-Wade. Now, guys, I'm going to say it. I have been hearing people say, let's take a starting slot corner in the 4th or 5th round. I don't know about you, but outside of the Seattle Seahawks, slot corner is just as important as the number 1 boundary corner. Because you're seeing more and more, heck, even with Tetairoa McMillan and Jalen Coker, we're putting guys in the slot to get them away from the opposing team's number 1 DB. Your slot guy has to be essentially just as good, if not better, than your number 1 boundary guy. That's where the game is gone. This is why you see so many teams going after these hybrid players at safety or linebacker. I ultimately see it as, if Avion Terrell is there, the corner out of Clemson, I would not have a complaint with snatching him up, because Caleb Banks is slowly sliding down people's boards because of the risk with that foot. And Panther Nation, I'm going to say it just like this. Do I think we need to get a top tier tackle, offensive tackle? It would be nice. But here's the fear that I have. And I hope he's gone so that Canellis and a lot of these knuckleheads that are whispering in their ear don't make them pull the trigger on this player. And it's actually 2 of them. Wide receiver Makai Lemon out of USC, and tight end out of Oregon, Kenyon Sadiq. Now, many of you are going to say, are you nuts? No. Look, let me explain the Kenyon Sadiq thing. Our tight ends aren't effective, or are the second least used in the league, because maybe Canellis doesn't feature them. If you think back to the Atlanta game and times in the Rams game, when the tight ends were featured, they balled out. And I remember watching a guy earlier this evening, and he said, plain as day, your receivers and your tight ends production is largely predicated on the who, the quarterback and the play calling.
You don't have to answer that question.
I'll answer the question.
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Simple as that. And I hear some of you saying, Kenyon Sadiq could be his security blanket. Not when you run a 4-3-9. You're not a security blanket. You're going to be asked to be a deep threat. Mitchell Evans is a security blanket. Tommy Tremble, security blanket. Jatavian Sanders, security blanket type guys that can make plays with the ball in their hand. Problem is, Dave Canellis' play calling is particularly with 1 or 2 efficient routes in it. The best game Dave Canellis called was that 450-yard game that he called for Bryce Young. Just watch it. The Atlanta Falcons did not know what was coming. Now keep in mind, I've said this a million times on the show, you guys. Atlanta had a top 5 defense. Their goal was to shut out Carolina's run game. And they did. But they forgot one thing. They got to stop the pass too. You can't just go into a game assuming automatically, this team just sucks throwing the football. Canellis went and did his homework. That was the one game I can look at Canellis and say, you actually called a great game. Everything you called seemed to work. And this is before Jalen Coker got balling out. Check the stats. The reason we don't need a receiver or a tight end a receiver for the third straight year in the first round, or a tight end, because you don't need to give up on XL yet. Yes, I said it. The guy who said we shouldn't have taken XL, yes, I said it, because I don't believe in wasting picks. And I believe that if with Idzik calling the plays this season, I believe he's going to try to prove himself, and he's going to try to prove himself with XL, with John Mechie. Oh, and did we forget, Jimmy Horn Jr.? Maybe Bryson Tremaine? Maybe Tommy Tremble? Maybe Mitchell Evans and Jatavian Sanders. Maybe he doesn't carry that same philosophy that Dave Canellis carries about not spreading the ball out. Maybe he wants to spread the ball out. But the most important thing we have to be able to knock out, you guys, we got to fill that hole at tackle, because it has not been proven that Cam Jackson, Turk Wharton, or Bobby Brown can be the Robin to Derek Brown's Batman. A'Shawn Robinson was that. And no matter how much money he saved us, you can't deny his production. Now, a lot of you are going to jump out and say, it wasn't that much. Well, let me help you out with something. He was in the top 50% of defensive tackles when it comes to tackles, total tackles. And this was a dude like Derek Brown, got his hands up when the ball was in the air. You can't replace a guy that is that efficient around the ball and around your superstar. You need a guy when teams come out there and say, okay, now we got Jaelan Phillips over here. And a lot of the deal that people thought about when Jaelan Phillips got signed, you thought that filled that big gap that A'Shawn Robinson was going to leave. Now, I'm very hopeful that Cam Jackson can do some really good things. I'm hopeful that Turk Wharton can come back in here and get healthy. But unfortunately, I say, until that theory is proven, we don't need to take a chance on a money year, not only for Bryce, but obviously for this organization. You don't want all the hard work that you put in last year with leaving your mark to go regress backwards. You got the Buccaneers reeling. You have the Falcons don't know what they're doing. And then you've got a Saints team that's looking up. Now, they don't have a whole bunch of draft capital to work with. So you can bet they're going to be trying to make some shots. And for a team that did not know who their quarterback was last year and really had no running game, look out. This could be the very year that our opportunity to make some noise goes down the drain with a bad selection at 19. Forget Makai Lemon. Forget Kenyon Sadiq. Focus in on your DTs. Oh, even KC Concepcion, I've heard people say. We got enough receivers on this roster. If we utilize them correctly, you can throw Bryson Tremaine in there to be a deep threat. He's not the fastest guy, but he can get up and go get it. You got T-Mac. Get on the field, go up and get it. Jalen Coker, get on the field, go up and get it. Jimmy Horn can get behind guys. Be creative. And I'm going to be honest with you. Jimmy Horn Jr. needs to be on the punt team. Bryson Tremaine, same thing. You need to try to utilize as many of these wide receivers on special teams as you possibly can. Reason being, so you don't have to take up roster spots, in essence, just for them to be receivers. But you need to have those options out there. A lot of people are going to say, well, you're going to have all your receptions spread out. Well, guess what? T-Mac won his old offensive player rookie of the year. I'm okay if he only catches 70 balls a year. Because here's the truth. Coker, if he stays healthy, can be a 71,000 guy. Xavier Legette, no matter what you guys say about him, if Idzik can unlock what he has in him, which is a Deebo Samuel type player, he could be a 5,800 guy with a ton of touchdowns. Jimmy Horn Jr. could be a 50 reception guy, 500 yards, with several deep receptions. It's all about what Idzik can call and whether or not our offensive line can hold up. Pick at 19, either DT, OT, or corner. Those three positions, people. Let's get out of this whole thought that we're building a Ferrari when really we have a dump truck that's a 4-speed. I know what people are going to say. Well, you're talking about Bryce and this, that, and other. Look, we want to run the ball. Let's make that clear. We need to take at least one guard, one tackle outside of the third round and build that depth back. Because we have not re-signed Brady Christensen, you guys. I hope you realize that. Yosh Nijman retired. Austin Corbett still a free agent. We don't have depth.
Bruh.
Gotta think about that. Please block out the Makai Lemon, the Casey Concepcion, as well as the Kenyon Sadiq. And even block out the Dylan Thieleman thought process. The safeties. You know, a lot of people are saying, Emmanuel McNeil Warren. Forget about him. Now, here's where I say we could explore the Emmanuel McNeil Warren. We don't need a lot. But we are going to need at least one extra tackle and one extra guard. And the way it looks for us, you guys, we have all our picks. We've got all of them. Now, in a perfect world, I say we get tackle, defensive tackle, possibly corner. Those are your three pressing needs. They have to happen. No backing off of that. After that, you could possibly use some of your draft capital, and this is just me projecting, guys. We could very well take one of our picks next season, trade back up, and get some of the players that we want, and keep the 158, the 159th pick, or possibly the 119th pick. But what I want to see is that we get a DT, OT, cornerback that can play the slot, and a center. Those are four players we have to walk out of here with. Like I said, we could possibly play our cards right and trade back into the third round at minimal cost and get one of these good players. Guy like Caleb Banks in the second round, he could fall. Now, I know I've gone off base, and guys, I do that when I'm going out there. And we've got guys on the the draft board, such as a Caden Proctor that people are talking about. Of course, Spencer Fano out of Utah, the pretty good offensive tackle. And, of course, the one that I really like is Blake Miller. I think, ultimately, trading back could be a good option for us. But I won't get too deep into that. That'll be a show where I'm talking about trading up, trading down from the 19th pick. And I'll even try to break down what we can do in these other rounds to possibly do what we need to do. But obviously, if we trade up, we probably won't have a second pick unless we trade in the middle of the first round. But, guys, that's going to do it for us on this edition of Growling and Prowling. And, of course, you know I'm a rambling wreck. But, guys, if there's something on the show that you weren't agreeable with or you wanted a question about, please hit down in the comments. And what do you think about my diagnosis of the Panthers not going and getting Kenyon Sadiq and Makai Lemon, as well as Casey Concepcion, or even Jordan Tyson? Let me know in the comments what you think about my thought process in this. Do you agree with me that we need to stay the course and get another defensive tackle or an offensive tackle? But don't just make a comment down there and, please elaborate on what you mean. I will read your comment on the show. But, guys, I hope you're doing great. Had a great Resurrection Sunday. All thanks be to the Almighty. Make sure when you comment down below. You also give the show a thumbs up and subscribe and hit that bell notification. Also, go over to Facebook at Growlin' and Prowlin so you can join the group as well as add us as a friend so that you can keep up with little cool things that we'll be doing, such as polls and questionnaires. Finally, if you want to get up with me personally for a collab or a possible question about any of my content, please go over to Mr. CeeLo on Instagram so you can keep up with all of my in-season and off-season shenanigans that I will be caught up in. But until the next time, keep prowling the airwaves and growling out. Keep pounding!